เ Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, we've got a show for you tonight. So, recently, GenCon, there is an award show that was being hosted by GenCon called the Crit Awards, and a few days ago, they put out a statement, and I would like to read that statement for you verbatim. Give me one moment. Have this up. We at the Crit Awards want to be very clear in our stance and address an update portion in our code of conduct for clarity. Individuals who identify as Zionists, promote Zionist material, or engage in activities that without a doubt support Zionism are not eligible for nomination. This was a, suffice to say, controversial stance that they put forward. People got upset. They contacted GenCon. GenCon was made aware. There was some discussion back and forth, and whether they were kicked off or whether they decided not to work with them anymore, they're no longer going to be hosted at GenCon because of this. So it raises questions. Is it okay to discriminate in an award show against Zionists? Or is that simply rank bigotry? Is it okay for GenCon to kick the award show out because they discriminated against Zionists? There's all these questions to ask. We've got a great guest list today to talk about it, and we're going to start by tossing the mic to Doobie. Doobie, what do you have for us, sir?
The answer is to both those things is yes. They actually, if they're going to keep to their code of conduct, which also bans things like racism, xenophobia, racial discrimination, these sorts of things that you would also consider white nationalism to violate, then I think that in keeping with that code of conduct, they should also ban Zionism, because Zionism is all those things. It is just like white nationalism. It is just another form of ethnic or racial nationalism that for some reason is politically correct, whereas white nationalism and black nationalism aren't. So I think we need to accept that it is the same thing, regardless of the sad story throughout history that you want to point to about the Jews being oppressed. You can make plenty of cases about other groups being oppressed, and we'll still say it's not okay for racial nationalism to exist within those groups. So if they want to keep their code of conduct, as it's been written, they should ban Zionism.
Okay, well, thank you for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Next up, RPG Pundit, first-time guest on my show, and we'll see what he has to say. Go ahead. Give us your opening thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I don't know if everybody else here is also a gamer. I'm not quite sure if that's, would you?
Yeah.
Is everyone else here also a gamer? Like,
I have the best games.
Yes. Context?
No, okay. I don't play games.
Ollie, I think is the lone non-gamer here, but everyone else plays games. So yeah.
Well, in case there's anyone watching who doesn't know who I am, I'm the RPG Pundit. I'm an indie producer of a large number of RPGs, especially in the old school revolution, which is the an indie design movement based on old school D&D. And I was also a consultant on the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons. My position on this, I mean, I made a video that was pretty instrumental in getting the word out about this anti-Zionist clause. They snuck it in, first of all, as a stealth mode. After they'd gotten the nominees, after they'd gotten the sponsors, they add in this incredibly polemic and fairly disgusting statement that they made. And in the first place, it's not, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. It's just the left's way of masquerading anti-Semitic thought. And we know this because we've seen how Jews in the West are being treated by the so-called Palestinian protesters, right? They're being assaulted, homes are being shot at, restaurants are being shot at, schools are being shot at, synagogues are being shot at, without any real consideration as to whether the people being shot at, nobody stopped to ask them, are you a Zionist, right? They just know that they're Jews. So this is just a cover term for leftist anti-Semites to engage in anti-Semitism. And this crew of progressive useful idiots decided to take on this position and to by stealth oblige everybody who had participated in this ridiculous award ceremony, because let's face it, most of these games and people on the list are not well known in any capacity in the hobby. They ended up being recruited unknowingly into their cause, right? Which is fundamentally a cause that supports the persecution of Jewish people.
Okay.
I guess I'll stop at that for my opening remarks.
We'll get into the details, I promise you. Right? We gotta try to keep these a little concise. Gelatinous Rube, what are your thoughts here? You are muted, sir. Beautiful. Growing great.
Thank you. I'm no longer sick. So I have not yet read the Building 7 tweet update yet in our 9/11 of RPGs that we're dealing with right now. But I would like to say that if you believe that people can separate into any kind of group, advocate for their own freedom of association and separation for any reason, up to, but especially for the preservation of preservation of life and happiness, then you must support any lesser, less significant, less severe, less important decision to separate on the behalf of a different group. So I think that it's completely fine for the Crit Awards to do this. I also think it's completely fine for GenCon to decide that they are not interested in hosting the event. I have to stay consistent here.
Okay.
So that's my position in a nutshell.
Thank you. We're going to get into it as we go, I promise you. Next up, Izzy. Go ahead.
Oh, hello. I'm Izzy, and my position about this is pretty much the same as RPG Pundit. What kind of PSYOPs, FBI investigation of backgrounds do these people at the Crit Award do in order to know that they're not nominating someone to be not nominate someone who's Zionist? Like, what kind of investigation do they do? Because most people don't just say, oh, I'm a Zionist, and everybody knows they're a Zionist, and that's how you know. And I suspect they do it just by looking at the last name of the person, which is Jewish, and that is anti-Semitic, that is not anti-Zionist. And also, I suspect that this is a marketing trick. Okay, I think it's a bad idea of somebody who's woke amongst the admins of this event, like someone who's woke. Yeah, he recruited everybody who are participating in the event to this cause, and I guess everyone else was okay with that because it's gonna help marketing, because more people are gonna hear about it. Like, I haven't heard about this event until its connection to a very, very hot topic these days, Israel-Palestine.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm against hosting this anti-Semitic convention.
Got you. Well, thank you for being here.
I mean, award. Yeah.
I got you. Thank you for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Last but certainly not least, Sociologic Ollie. What are your thoughts here?
Oh, yeah. Should they have said that? I mean, if they want to stay in the awards, probably not. But if they stick with their, to Doobie's point, they stick with their code of ethics. They don't want these things around. They don't want to support an ethno-state in a time right now where, I'm sorry, Izzy, but everyone is literally voicing their opinions. So if you just check anyone's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever social media they may have, you're going to generally see which way they're leaning in this topic, or if they're neutral in this topic, right? To which, everyone's kind of voiced their opinion and concern.
Hey, hold on. It's opening statements.
Sorry.
It's opening statements, please. Ollie,
yeah.
continue.
However, I mean, yeah, the game GenCon or whatever did what they also wanted to do, which was kick them out. Which, I mean, sure, that's fine too. It's against their ethics to have that and to have that kind of thing in their award show. They kicked them out. the whole conflation of anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism is gotten so boring. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, and with that, let's open it up. I guess I'd just ask straight up to Doobie and to Ali. Do you not worry that there are a lot of people who can't tell the difference between a Zionist and someone who is simply Jewish or simply neutral on Israel and things like that? When they made this tweet, what do you think they mean when they say Zionist? If not Jew, what do you think they mean? Go ahead.
I feel like they.
You can go ahead, Elliot.
I was going to say, I feel like they just know that this is a really conflated topic right now. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's trying to go to every award show, ceremony, protest in the streets, whatever it may be. And I think, honestly, they want to avoid tension and drama. And for people of like Zionism, it could potentially be just as easy as coming into groups with Israeli flags. But also, to be fair, I think they were just, one, avoiding tension, but two, they picked a side. Right, they sided with Palestinians. They said they doubled down in a retweet that they did today that you shared in the Discord. So I mean, I don't see necessarily an issue with them picking a side. All companies seem to be picking a side. Colleges, political actors seem to be picking a side. This is just another person who picked their side.
Doobie, your thoughts?
So yeah, I think that's a ridiculous question. So I think if you can't tell the difference between a Zionist, which is a specific like political ideology, and just like a normal the average Jewish person, or just a Jewish person who doesn't express any kind of political ideology, then you are just a bigot, right? You are just an anti-Semite, and you should be shit on, right? But that's not really what we're talking about. This would be like you asking me, hey, Doobie, shouldn't we be careful about criticizing white nationalism because some people might think that all white people are racist if we criticize white nationalism? Sure, some people are fucking stupid. We accept that some people are stupid, and we move on from them. If they pop up, we say, hey, you're fucking stupid, don't do that. Then we move on. That doesn't mean we can't criticize a political movement, especially a political movement as powerful as Zionism is within the United States and across the world. So yeah, I think we should still criticize Zionism. I think that if people have an issue with racial nationalism or ethnic nationalism, they should absolutely criticize Zionism, even if there's stupid people out there who might not understand it.
Okay, open to the floor. Go ahead. Discussion time, gang. What do we think? Don't be shy.
Izzy, do you think that this Crit Awards event was some kind of inside job?
What do you mean?
You were suggesting that it was some kind of marketing ploy, like an inside job.
No, I okay. First of all, I think it was genuinely done by one of them, at least, but the rest agreed to that because it's gonna put them in the headers, like in the newspapers, because I don't know, it's a hot topic today.
Where does this come from?
And you stay relevant by.
I mean, weren't they already?
And they did it. They politicized tabletop games. That's.
Okay, but like, where does that come from? So tabletop games are already politicized, first off, but where does this belief come from that this is like some marketing ploy? Because to me, it sounds like you just made this up out of your asshole, and you have no backing for this whatsoever. It's like some weird, like, no, it's not specifically Zionism. They wouldn't allow white nationalism either.
Why
hey, both of you.
Nazis are a convention. You would agree with that.
Here, I can help.
I disagree with you. White nationalists are on your side. You guys, woke people and racists are, white nationalist racists are like buddies. They think all the same things. They both hate Jews. They both hate Zionism.
First off, I'm not a woke person. That's fucking ridiculous.
They both think that white supremacy is real. It's just they're on different sides of that coin, right? One of you is for it, the other against it. But basically, all of your ideas are the same.
Hold on, RPG pundit. Can you give me an argument for allowing modern day Zionism that wouldn't also allow for white nationalism?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can you give me an argument?
Hold on, Izzy, stop. Doobie, go ahead, Doobie.
Can you give me an argument or a stance or a position for them to take within their code of conduct that would allow for Zionism to exist, that wouldn't also allow for white nationalism to exist within their convention or their award ceremony?
I don't even know how to justify that as a question. I mean, why would you allow redheads to exist in that ceremony? I mean, like, what's your point there, right?
It's extremely dishonest. The point is obviously that these are two political ideologies that are race-based.
Hold on, one at a time. One at a time.
You want me to answer the question?
Answer the question.
Do you think that they should
I want you to be
outlaw
honest with
black
yourself.
at this ceremony?
No, I want you to be honest with yourself. So the reason this question makes sense is because white nationalism and Zionism are two ethnic or race-based nationalistic ideologies, right? That again are race-based. So if you can allow for white nationalism, you can allow for Zionism. If you can allow for Zionism, why can't you? It could be any other kind of
Any
racial
form of
nationalism.
nationalism is going to be his point.
Yeah, it could be any other kind of racial nationalism.
Okay.
There are
All
lots
right,
of
hold on,
brown
Izzy, stop.
Zionists.
Pundit, I want to hear from Pundit and only Pundit. I want to give him a chance to answer this. Go ahead, Pundit.
All of leftist critical theory is a race-based ideology. The entire basis that Western university students of low intellect have jumped on board is because they were trained all their lives in public schools to look at the Peter Griffin color chart in reverse, right? That if there's the darker skin, then those are the good people, the lighter skin are the bad people. White nationalists just have the exact same thing, but upside down, right? Because all of you believe that the color of your skin is more important than the content of one's character.
You're dumb as fuck. Okay, so can you stop? Can you stop attacking this caricature of a woke person that you've invented and talk to me?
They're brown Jews. Hello, stop calling it white nationalism.
That's not his point,
That's
Izzy. Izzy, don't interrupt. That's not his point. Go off.
No, can you stop attacking this caricature of a woke leftist that you've invented and talk to me? I'm not a woke leftist. I'm not a person who's into racial identitarianism at all, whatsoever. I'm asking you as the anti-woke, anti-racial identitarian person to justify supporting Zionism with it, which is an ethnic-based nationalist ideology.
Every single white nationalist I've ever met that's a real one, and I've had to fight with quite a few on both the right and the left. They believe fundamentally that Israel is an enemy to them. Right? There's very
oh my.
Hold on. Let him answer. You gotta let him answer. You gotta give him some space, gang. Okay.
He's just oh god.
Finish. Yeah.
So that's the basis. If you're judging things by these quotas of victimhood, which is also what white nationalists do. White nationalists' whole deal is, we've been hard done by. The white man has been hard done by these, these other people, these other foreign races and what have you. Right? It's the same thing, except it's in reverse. You guys are looking at it from this Marxist perspective where you've replaced the class struggle with a racial divide, ironically, completely contrary to what Marx believed in, but there you have it, because you realize that class-based Marxism isn't going to get you the revolution that you want, right? So instead you have to go by creating racial fissures.
Okay. You realize that is exactly what Zionism does, right? Zionism is an ethnic or race-based nationalistic movement.
No, it doesn't. No, it's not.
What do you think Zionism is?
Zionism is the belief that the Jewish people have a right to a homeland.
Exactly.
Are the Jewish people an ethnic group?
Israel is the indigenous land. The natives of Israel are the Jewish people. And they have been there since BC.
Blood and soil.
And constantly there from that time until today.
You're literally using blood and soil neo-Nazi talking points right now.
Okay, I have a question. Maybe break the circle. Stop. I have a question. I have a question for you. I have a question for the other side here. I have a question for Pundit, for Rube, and for Izzy here. Okay. How do we square the circle of freedom of speech when it comes to this? When part of freedom of speech is freedom of association, a organization or a group or a individual are free, if they wish, to say, I don't want to be around conservatives, or I don't want to be around communists, or I don't want to be around any of these other philosophies or ways of thinking. What is different about Zionism? Why is it different when it comes to Zionism? Isn't it just like saying, I don't want to be around commies?
It's singled out.
I do have a pretty significant difference here, and it's the difference not necessarily of freedom of association, but rather freedom of commerce. So most fringe ideologies don't really have an equal seat at the table by their nature because they're fringe. They're not as well liked. They attract fringe personalities, which are of course inherently unlikable, so they tend to have less political power overall. So they're unable to, in the process of interfering with, let's say, freedom of speech, and then lower than that, freedom of association, they usually still don't interfere with freedom of commerce. This is not the case with Zionism, because Zionism has significant financial backing and interference, not just in American institutions, private institutions writ large, but specifically American elections. And so there is a sense in the American mind that this is proper. This is our 51st state that happens to be a major financial contributor. And so this kind of flows down from politics into culture, where freedom of commerce is interrupted, or threatened rather, and then freedom of association and freedom of speech follow suit.
Okay, Izzy, then
You feel the same way about Qatar?
Well,
Yes.
Zionism is singled out. Like, why doesn't it say anything about other political views that they shouldn't be allowed? Why doesn't it
Well, I
say
think I just
anything about
explained that. It's because
neo-Nazis?
they're not as liked.
Well,
Neo-Nazis
why
are
doesn't
not
it
as
say
liked.
anything about neo-Nazis?
Because they're not as liked. Izzy, I don't know if you could hear me. Your mic is peaking, so I don't know what your audio settings are set to. But I did just say they're not as liked. Neo-Nazis are not part of any kind of major financial institution or financial backing, as far as we know, within the American public.
So, so people like Zionism, and that's why this is happening.
They don't dislike it as much as they like neo-Nazis. Does that
Zionism
strike you as
is
an
a
unfair
racist
characterization?
Okay, you want to tell me people like Zionists more than they dislike neo-Nazis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no pro-Nazi school curriculum in American schools. There are no pro-Nazi candidates in existence. There is no PAC or super PAC dedicated to the funding of pro-Nazi candidates in America.
Doesn't Fuentes have a PAC?
Yeah.
Pretty sure he does.
They have their own ward.
Okay, all right. I retract that last statement then. I don't know how much interference they're engaged in local and national elections on a consistent basis. Brandon Herrera did not receive...
Hold on, Rube.
Just briefly, Brandon Herrera did not receive $3.1 million from a Nazi super PAC. His opponent did receive $3.1 million from a PAC.
Rube, I want to be really clear what you're saying here. I just want to make sure that everyone understands, right, what you're trying to say here. Is your argument, because this is what I'm hearing, and you can clarify if you wish, is your argument that the reason that it's okay to ban Zionism is because they have this overly large influence on the way we run our country and the way we run our elections? Is this what we're arguing here?
No, I'm saying it's okay to ban anti-Zionists for this reason. That's why it's more politically acceptable.
Okay, but they banned Zionism, to be clear.
Because the question was, no, I'm not talking about the Crit Awards, I'm talking about GenCon.
Okay.
Why was GenCon allowed to separate from them?
Okay.
This is not endorsement, this is not a condemnation either. This is just simple realpolitik. Who has more influence in American elections, American politics? Okay to ban them.
I want to give Pundit a chance to answer the question, then we're going to go to open again. Go ahead, Pundit.
I could first of all clarify something about what I believe happened with GenCon. After my video was posted, there was a discussion about it on the RPGsite.com, which is the RPG-related forum that I own. And it was in there that there was a lot of people that were mobilized to contact GenCon. One of them is somebody who's got a pretty good reputation in the legal profession, and he mentioned that he pointed out to GenCon. Now, I don't know for sure that this was, like, let's say, the straw that broke the camel's back, right? But he pointed out that according to Indiana laws or regulations, having an event in the center, the convention center, or whatever it is that GenCon is held, with that particular clause could be in violation of certain statutes, let's say. And so it could have gotten GenCon into trouble with I guess the state or something like that. So that
it's illegal to boycott Zionism or do the BDS in certain states, especially if you're a company, you can suffer a lot of issues with that.
And especially we know this to be a fact because even though the Crit Awards, when they announced, they said it's safety reasons, as if there's like a bunch of, rabbis that are going to come in and beat people up there. that was what they were afraid of.
Yeah.
It sounded like it was a rabbi. It sounded like some kind of group, some kind of cabal that was conspiring to, one, take legal action, and two, maybe car bomb them. I don't know. Can you confirm or deny whether or not you
with the rabbis?
When was the last time rabbis bombed to someone's car? Come on.
I mean, you can
Every
look at
time there's a Zionist meeting.
West Bank, I guess.
Just finish what I was going to say, because some people might not be aware of this, that the guy that was going to MC the Crit Awards, a guy named Critical Bard or something like that, he went on Twitter and he said, he basically said, because he was under no kind of NDA or restriction, said that
no, not rabbis. No, not rabbis. Because I don't think RPG Pundit is a Swami. He's not a rabbi.
Critical Bard said that the people at GenCon had chosen money over over their principles or something like that, and so this is the proof that it wasn't that the Crit Awards chose to step down from it or something like that. It was that GenCon said they had to. Right?
Can I ask to Doobie and to Ollie real quick? Do you think that the GenCon banning the Crit Awards or disconnecting from the Crit Awards, do you think that's them siding with Zionism? One of the things I've seen online, at least on Twitter, are a lot of people who are arguing we should boycott GenCon. GenCon are Zionists. GenCon are anti-Palestinian. Do you guys feel that way? Or do you think that was just simply a business decision? What do you think?
Have they made any statements being pro-Zionist? Otherwise, I would just say it was a business play.
Fair enough. Do you agree or disagree, Dobie?
So, as far as I know, GenCon was going to be held in Indiana. I'd be extremely surprised. I haven't looked this up yet, but I'd be extremely surprised if Indiana doesn't have some kind of an anti-BDS law in the books. And anti-BDS laws, if you guys don't know what that is, many states have made it illegal for businesses to participate in boycotts of Israel, any kind of boycott against Israel, which is fucking disgusting, by the way. It's disgusting that's happening. But that is a case that is law in the books in many states. So I'd be extremely surprised if that's not the case in Indiana. So it might have actually violated that law if they had allowed us to go forward.
What do we think of BDS laws in general? I'm just curious to the other side, because that is a thing. There are laws on the books in certain states, which makes, and to be clear, what BDS is boycott, divest, and sanction. That's what it stands for, gang.
Indiana does have anti-BDS laws.
Yes.
Yeah,
do we think those are okay? Like, again, isn't that a...
Nah, that shit's crazy.
That shit's crazy? Do we disagree on
I think it's great.
Why?
Of course you do.
Of course you do, but like I can boycott Florida, I can boycott Texas, I can boycott whole states in America. I can
boycott other countries. We can boycott any other country, but not Israel.
Well, so you guys, it's okay. I don't hate Jews. I just hate half of them. That's anti-Zionism.
You're a fucking idiot. You're really stupid.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck about
Hey,
the Jew thing. Anti-Semite doesn't work over
We
here.
can boycott China.
One at a
We
time.
can boycott China today if we wanted to as a company, and that's legal to do. But it's illegal in many states specifically to boycott Israel, the nation of Israel, not Jewish people, not Zionists, the nation of Israel.
People
that
have
is
been
fucking
boycotting
disgusting.
Israel since it was...
and it's illegal in 36 states.
A bit more divided on these kind of things, perhaps, because my position would be that if you are an entirely private company engaged in entirely private business, that is to say the government is not in any way involved with or subsidizing what you do, then you have the right to boycott whatever you want, okay? But if public money is involved at any point along the line, then that becomes a different story, because there you are trying to put limits on or impose positions on public funds.
Opinions aren't public funds. You can support the company or not. You can boycott it if you don't like their opinions.
No,
You
what
don't
I'm
have to
saying
keep
is,
supporting that company.
somebody's tool shop, right? And they don't want to sell tools to Israel, and the government has nothing to do with that. They're free not to sell tools to Israel, right? Or to buy tools from Israel. But if we're talking about a state-sponsored college, a government-sponsored institution, something that has a connection to any level of government, then you are involving taxpayer funds in that, and then the government does.
Yeah, but why should they have to
The
buy
distribution of
Hold on,
taxpayer funds in the
hold on.
PPP
You're all trying to
loans
talk
or
over
any
each
of the
other.
common grants?
Please. You're all talking over each other. I want him to finish. When government funds are involved, and then everyone started talking at once, and I couldn't hear you. So please finish.
When the government funds are involved, it's involving the taxpayer, and the government has a legitimate option. If you take public money, the government has a legitimate option to be able to place restrictions on what you should be doing with them.
For them to place restrictions on, if, for example, if a state, for example, Texas was like, you know what, none of our school curriculum, none of our books, they're gonna be American made. We're not gonna buy any from China. Okay, we don't want to buy any books from China. Do you think that would be an okay thing for the state to do?
If the state Congress passes a law saying that,
okay,
for whatever the reason might be, whether it's that they don't agree ideologically with China or they oppose slave labor in China or whatever, then yes, that's a government. And if you don't want that to affect your company, then don't take money from the state. Nobody is forcing you to take money.
So just hold on. Follow-up question then. Say California or New York or New Jersey decide, hey, we don't want to buy any of our materials from Israel. Do you think that that's okay?
Yes, I mean, okay. If talking about a federalist system, you have to take the good with the bad, right? And so if you're looking at, and I mean, I'm not actually American, right? But I have a great admiration for the federalist system in America, because what that means is that Canadian? If you're living in a state, that state should be able to determine. I have a Canadian citizenship, but I live in South America.
Carry on, though.
But that state should have the right to decide. It's the same. There's a lot of federal overreach that happens nowadays in U.S. government. There's going to be less of it as of today because of the Chevron ruling, thank God. But in any case, individual states should have the right to reflect what the people living in that state in a majority would prefer. And it shouldn't be, there shouldn't be something that dictates necessarily the same rule for California as for Alabama.
So why, and just for I see you guys' hand raised, don't worry, I'll get to you, but I want to finish this line of questioning. So why is it untowards if a private company, such as the Crit Awards, say, we don't want any Zionists to be in our award show? Why is that wrong?
Okay. From my perspective, and I know that maybe the other people who are on the other person who's on the anti-Zionism side here might disagree. I don't know. I am first and foremost a strong believer in free speech, right? You are allowed in your own context to have despicable views, and as a group, you can have despicable views. I know that there are groups in the OSR that have certain despicable views, like the Bro-SR people, right?
Don't associate me with the OSR, please. We don't want anything to do with you.
I didn't mention you, but now that you said it,
you said the Bro-SR. We're not associated with PDF merchants.
Okay, so the thing is, they're allowed to have those views, and at the same time, they have to accept that there can be consequences from those views. That's what the left has been saying all the time, right? About supposed right-wingers with right-wing views, right? The thing is, now there has been such distaste from a large number of the excesses of the left that finally there's people saying, hey, look, these Alinsky rules that they've been trying to use on us, let's use it on them, right? Alinsky said, always make the enemy play by their own rules, and that's what we're doing here.
Interesting. Okay. Well, fair enough. I guess let's explore this topic a little bit more, right?
Well, Doobie.
Oh, go ahead.
Doobie been waiting for a minute. Go.
Doobie, go ahead. No,
Okay.
You're correct.
So, I have a question for Goat or Izzy or whatever. So you said it was great that these anti-BDS laws were on the books. So I just want you to kind of flesh that out a bit, because I've never heard somebody say that and not be like a racist. So why do you think it's great that private companies in these states are not allowed to boycott Israel, where they could boycott any other nation on the planet? They're specifically not allowed to boycott Israel.
Okay, I'll answer that. First of all, I'm Israeli. Okay, that's a reason.
Makes sense.
I'm from here. I want things for the better of my country, for the better of my country's economy. Boycotts around the world. Okay, I have no problem with boycotts from the settlements, illegal settlements. Okay, I have problem with the boycotts of legal settlements. Okay, the regular places, the whole of Israel. Okay, you can boycott. If people have been boycotting illegal settlements, made products for years. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. They can do that, but boycott the whole of Israel. That's kind of anti-Semitic.
Right. Okay, explain how it's anti-Semitic to boycott Israel. Would you say that it's
because
would you say that it's anti-black to boycott Nigeria?
To hate half of the Jews. Okay, I think
it's
still anti-Semitic.
That's not the same thing.
Here,
Stop conflating those things. Okay, so if I were to say, hey, I want to boycott China because I don't like China's culture. I don't like what the government's doing. Whatever. I don't like that they're genociding, culturally genociding the Uyghur Muslims.
Jews deserve to be protected.
Shut up. Okay, please stop. Okay, that's what I said earlier. I've never heard that from somebody who's not a racist, but we'll get to that. So if I were to say, hey, I want to boycott China as a private company because I don't like that they're culturally genociding the Uyghur Muslims, that wouldn't make me like an anti-Chinese racist, right? You agree with that, right? It'd be totally reasonable for me to want to like boycott China and not be a racist. Why couldn't we apply the same standard to Israel?
You can boycott China. I don't have a problem with boycotting China.
Would I be a racist?
Does that make you racist against Chinese people? Would that make you racist? Well, boycotting Zionism would be boycotting the ideology.
Boycotting Zionism
is boycotting the ideology.
It's boycotting. Yeah, well.
You just said it.
Hold on,
so
let it
it's a good point. It's not consistent, but still.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to ask one question here. Is anti-Zionism essentially an opposition to the entire state of Israel?
Yes, in its current form, yes, I would say yes.
That Israel as a state should not exist, from the river to the sea. Take them all out.
Okay, when you say take them all out, I think you're being a little
take out
you're being a little icky.
Hold
on.
Yeah.
Well, I can explain it to you. I can explain it to you, Pundit. What it typically means, and what it means. Okay, he's talking, but I can hear him. One second.
Like, you know what the river and the sea are, right? Do you know
okay,
what
you're gonna do the fear mongering thing? I don't give a fuck, right? I don't care about your delusional paranoia. What I'm telling you is, when I say I'm an anti-Zionist and I don't believe in Zionism,
use big words. Come on.
That's not a big. That was like a three-syllable
Okay, you guys
word.
gotta go one at a time.
Charge words. Okay.
Hold on, we can't hear you, Ruben. I don't know, you're cutting out or something.
There isn't a single politician in the so-called Palestinian region that are calling for anything other than the extermination of Israel as a whole.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what.
So wait one second.
We gotta let him respond. We gotta let him respond. Ha, stop. Doobie, we gotta let Doobie respond. Go ahead.
Okay, so when I say I'm anti-Zionist and I don't like Zionism, what I mean, and when I say that equals that I would undo Israel in its current context, right? I'm opposed to the existence of Israel as it currently is. What I mean to say, what I mean by that is that I don't support the existence of a Jewish supremacist ethno-state that oppresses its neighbors. It is absolutely a Jewish supremacist. Look up. Okay, while you're here, you have Google, I'm sure. Look up the nation-state law. Right, passed in 2018, it affirms that the right to self-determination within Israel is unique to the Jewish people. Israel isn't Israel is a Jewish supremacist ethno-state.
We know. Can you let him finish his point? We know. Can you let him finish his point?
Yeah.
This was passed in 2018. Okay, the Nazis weren't a problem in 2018. So Israel specifically a Jewish supremacist. Israel is specifically a Jewish supremacist ethno-state. That is just true.
Okay, are you done, Doobie?
Okay.
Now we can respond.
Nazis
Israel,
used to define Jewish people.
Yeah, and now you've adopted the policies of the Nazis.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Ruben,
Israel
I'm
is-
sorry.
That's not the. Oh my God.
Okay.
Ruben, happy
I
Pride
know.
Month.
We're laughing.
Pundit. I don't know why I called you Ruben. Pundit, respond, please.
Okay, Israel is the only state in the entire Middle East, the only nation in the entire Middle East that has a democratic, multicultural, multi-ethnic state. There are 2 million Arab Muslims who are Jewish citizens, or who
Why
are
are they beating
Israeli
their protesters?
Those Arab Muslims have
No, I'm talking about
essentially-
the Israeli Jewish citizens that they're beating.
no
Such as the ultra-Orthodox.
Muslim citizens of Israel have gone up in their approval rating of Israel after October 7th, because none of them want to live in the kind of crap state that would be created by Hamas or the Palestinian Authority.
Yeah, they're bought out. What's the issue? Obviously, if I was given free healthcare and free school, I would agree to live in the state that I live in. It's fine. I agree with the issues of the state that I live in.
Suppose, right? The disaster, right? Those are the people that didn't listen to the alliance of the Arab League telling people to leave their homes to make it easier to kill Jews, and they stayed. And those are actually the ancestral Arabs of Israel. I'm a historian, and this historical perspective of Israel.
The good Palestinians.
You're a historian, then you're naming full of shit right now.
Hold on. You guys can respond
They're
to
the
him
good
once he finishes.
Palestinians.
You guys can respond to him once he's finished, but he's got to be able to
Yeah,
finish.
okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to jump in here soon, just to let you know.
Yeah, I hear you.
By the time of the Ottoman Empire, the area that is today known as Israel was essentially depopulated, right? There was maybe 15,000 people in the whole area, right? And of those, there were a large number of Jews, because again, one of the arguments of anti-Zionism is that the Jews are colonizers. They're all really Polish people that pretended to be Jews and came back and then occupied the region and oppressed the darker skinned people. But that's nonsense, because even today in Israel, half of the Jewish population of Israel are Mizrahi Jews, which are Jews that were always from the Middle East, and they've always been there, right? And in the time of the Ottoman period, you had a population of Jews, of Christians, and of Muslims that were living in Jerusalem. You had a few other towns that had some populations, usually more monocultures of either, Arab Muslims or Jews, or sometimes Druze or what have you. And then you had the Bedouins, who had been there almost as long as the Jews themselves, and who are a kind of a nomadic people that were also mostly Arab Muslims.
Who are the Canaanites?
All right, so you're wanting to go back to like 3,000 years ago.
If you're going to say they're the native population, like obviously we need to go back to the native population, which is the Canaanites, right? And actually there were empires before the Canaanites, so we're in the same area. And they were conquered by Jewish people. Yes.
I'm getting to it in up until the late 1800s, the area had essentially been pretty much left barren. It was an area that was, in the Ottoman Empire, it's called Sanjak Jerusalem. That was the name of the territory, and it was it was a backwater. Then the Zionist movement happened, and you had this migration of Zionists into the land of which is today called Israel. They came in there. They bought land. They bought areas that looked like desert, and they
dumpster.
Again, there's this incredible picture around the turn of the century of a bunch of guys in front of a desert, and 20 years later,
a lot of
that's
desert in the Middle East. Yes,
yeah, this is literally. This is literally like a white savior shit that you're doing right now.
Hold on.
The idea that these dirty Arabs couldn't.
This was simultaneously the start of civilization and a trash.
And Ollie, hold on, Doobie and Ollie, you are talking at the same time, and no one can hear anything.
Well, we have one person saying that it's a trash can, and another person says it's the start of.
Ollie, I'm giving it to you. I'm giving you the floor, Ollie.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. This one's calling it a trash can. This one's saying that they bought it and it was nothing. But this was a start of. That just makes no sense. The fact that you guys think that Palestine was just literally a empty desert because there was a picture in front of a desert in the Middle East is ridiculous. But all right,
have you ever been here?
Me? I'm Lebanese. Yeah, I've been there. What are you talking about?
Did you not see the Negev?
What happened after the Zionists had large-scale immigration of Arab Muslims coming from Egypt, coming from Jordan, coming from Syria, what is today called those countries, anyways, from Lebanon, sometimes from further off, that came in there and joined in the opportunities that this growth provided. But they came after, for the most part. Almost all of the so-called Palestinians have less of a line of descent of occupation in the territory than most of the Jews who are there.
That's total bullshit.
Okay. Doobie, you can respond now, but then I want to hear from, I know Rube's been trying to get in, so Doobie, you can respond, then we'll go to Rube. That's the order we're going. And gang, just FYI, we will read your super chats at the top of the hour. Keep getting them in, and I'll read them. Pay me money. Go ahead, Doobie.
I don't even know where to start with this. So everything you said was wrong, I think. So I guess I'll just start with the idea that these are like the Jews are like native to this area or something, and they're not colonizers or settlers. There was another civilization there before the Jews got there. It's in their holy books, right? They conquered the civilization, they killed all the people there, and they took the land, right? The promised land, right? That is in their holy book. It's not like a secret, right? So there's a name for that civilization.
They don't exist now.
What's up? Don't say none of those people survived, because there have been multiple studies on this, multiple research on this that you can look into. They're fine. That the modern day Palestinian population are descendants of the Canaanites and the Philistines. You can Google this. You can Google this. Please stop. Hold on. But I'm not saying that there aren't Jewish people there who are also descendants of that same group of people, because they actually didn't wipe out every single one. There were people that survived who still lived in the area after the Jews conquered it, and their lines continued on. So to claim that, oh well, the Jews were there first, so therefore it's okay for them to be like a racial nationalists, it's fucking ridiculous. Right? But also this idea that the Arabs couldn't it's like this weird white savior thing that you're doing, pushing this idea that the Arabs couldn't farm the land, that the Arabs couldn't build a civilization there.
Half of the Jews are not freaking white.
Let him talk.
Until the Jews came and taught them how to build civilization, brought civilization to these dirty Arabs in the desert. That's also fucking ridiculous. It's not true. You can't just Google this, Mr. Historian. I don't know what the fuck you're smoking in that pipe, but everything we're saying so far is bullshit.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that in the time of the Ottoman Empire, that region was not being used in a fashion that, I mean, of course, there were lots of other places in the Ottoman Empire where they were a major civilization.
How did hundreds of thousands of people leave an area that wasn't populated or being used?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
During the Nakba, even prior to the Nakba, hundreds of thousands of people were forced off this territory. How did that happen if it wasn't populated or being used?
People by 50 years later, from the time that I was talking about, you had hundreds of thousands of people there. They were migrants. They were Jewish migrants, and they were Arab Muslim migrants.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Is the argument that, I'm so sorry, I'm a little bit lost here, because I thought this history lesson was going to end in explaining why Israel is still a shithole today, and just a series of under construction buildings that are all being held by real estate managers for some reason, but we never got there. Really, I guess the question is now, do we have to argue that the Ottoman Empire was tremendous at managing every single aspect of their ecological and geographical and social resources in order to determine whether or not the Crit Award should have been shut down?
Yeah, I'm going to throw a flag on the play. We need to rein this in a little bit, because we are talking about something that happened a week ago. The Crit Awards and GenCon, and while again Israel-Palestine is a good topic, it's an interesting topic, there's a lot to talk about in that topic, I do want to focus in on the Crit Awards itself, right? And I do want to talk a little bit about that. And my question for you, for all of you, okay, open to the panel itself, right? What do you think the fallout from this will be in the gaming community, as well as in the convention community? Do you think this makes it more or less likely that other award shows will want to work with GenCon, or will want to try to ban Zionists, or try to ban people who are pro-Palestinian, or anything like that? Rube hasn't gotten a chance to go for a while. I'm going to give it to Rube, and then we can hear from the rest of you.
All right, a little bit of insider baseball. GenCon is already somewhat miserable to work with, so this will make it easier for other game companies to not work with them in the future, because there's a kind of social disalignment. There's the issue that we were discussing earlier, where you have these boycott, divestment, and
BDSM is something else. BDS.
Anti-BDS.
Yeah. Boycott,
Just BDS.
divest, and
In the end.
sanction.
Filthy. Apologies. So derailed my entire train of thought.
Sorry.
How dare you? Happy Pride Month. Okay, so when it comes to these companies and the convention circuit taking money from public tax funding, I think this is going to spark a lot more awards shows being rewarded for separating from these existing conventions and perhaps setting up their own. That's probably a good thing, because these conventions are encouraged to take minor public grants that automatically, for some reason, make them beholden to the rest of the United States and its alliances, and provide this nice financial shortcut or workaround for suppressing freedom of speech and freedom of association. That only flows one way, because it's financially backed. So I think that you're going to see more award shows, more game companies setting up their own conventions, setting up virtual events, which are a lot lower cost to do, but I think are personally less interesting. But for some people, they're cooler. And you're going to see a few more. Yeah, I think you're going to see more companies dropping out of the convention circuit, which is a shame, because I think these conventions are cool. I want them to continue on, but if they can't maintain a pro-social position because of their financial obligations, and thus their legal obligations to the United States government under frankly, what should be an illegal law at this point, and clearly a violation of the First Amendment, or at the very least a workaround, then good riddance.
Okay. What do the rest of us think?
I don't know. A year after this war stops, all of this is going to be thrown under the rug, and that was kind of like the point why I don't think anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. This shit only comes out because there's a war happening. Had a war not been happening, you don't even hear the fucking word Zionism. But because there's a war, and that's the focus of topic of conversation across the fucking world, that's what people are going to take stances on these things. But a year after this war is done, settled, whatever it may be,
people forget they hate Jews after a year. Yeah.
Lady, no
Not
one
really an
is
intense
worried
hatred in that
about
case, is it?
being called an anti-Semite. You got to stop trying to push that narrative here after everything we say, because
That's not a narrative I'm pushing.
It is. You keep trying to say after
No, it's
everything
not.
we say for anti-Zionism. I'm not worried about you calling me an anti-Semite. I'm not going to lose anything. There's no loss
I
here.
don't care about you being an anti-Semite or not, or calling
Then
you
stop
because
saying it after every statement me and Doobie make.
this is
Where do you rank
I'm allowed to
anti-Semitism?
say
The reality is
whatever
that she's just
I
a Jewish
want.
supremacist. Like, that's the reality.
Okay.
It's the Jewish
boring.
So I
This
want to go ahead,
started-
Pundit.
Also,
on.
why are you not attacking any of the content of what
Okay,
I'm saying?
every time someone tries to talk at the same time as Pundit,
trying to
no
paint
one
the
can hear
narrative
what
that I'm an
Pundit's saying.
anti-Semite, trying to paint me into
Okay,
Pundit is
we
bad.
get it. You guys don't like each other.
Is anti-Semitic.
Hold up. I want to hear what Pundit says. Go ahead.
I was just saying, have you tried calling on Hamas to surrender and hand over the hostages?
Yeah.
Who, me?
This is still it. And
Wait,
every
me like
time I-
individually? Do you think I have a direct line?
I mean, there are hundreds
Are you
of
asking me if
thousands,
I condemn Hamas?
thousands of Islamists and idiots.
Do you condemn? Yes, I
You
condemn
must
Hamas.
condemn Hamas.
Yeah, I condemn Hamas. It's fine. What's the issue?
Nobody is calling for Hamas to surrender out of those people, you know. So like,
Yep.
you seem to be.
Do you
talking about?
think these people? Do you think Hamas listens to the people that are going to call for surrender? Bibi doesn't call for surrender either. So when we call for it either, so they're
Say
not
the
like.
same
Why do
about
you
the
think?
Israelis.
What?
You can say the same about the Israeli. No, but why would they listen?
Well, because
Hamas
the
doesn't listen, why
Israelis
would
are the
they
ones
listen?
bombing our kids and our children. So we're gonna yell at the people doing the bombing and not the people that are getting bombed. That's generally how it works.
How about they
RPG to these
bombing
people.
us?
How am I going to translate RPG to Hamas and inform them that we have an RPG convention condemning them?
Let them know.
You're going to think we're talking about rocket-propelled grenades.
That's a fair point. Let's talk about RPGs then. If we're going to get real about this, then frankly, I think that the vast majority of people that are going to be going to GenCon, even to this day, are basically normal gamers who are not particularly interested one way or the other in this topic, right? Like there have been a lot of people on Twitter who have said they're going to boycott GenCon because because they aren't anti-Zionist. But if that actually happens, it might mean that you might have the least pretentious GenCon in the last 15 years. So great, but most gamers are just, they're probably not even going to know that this happened, and if they did, they wouldn't care because, again, the Crit Awards are so unbelievably niche that I'm pretty well informed in the RPG scene, as both a designer and a commentator, and almost all of the so-called nominees were people I'd never even heard of.
Then why'd you blow them up and you made them more popular in accordance to you, since you were the originator of this thing? Why make them a focus and a struggle and essentially have a whole panel hosted about them so we can only boast their names so much?
And
if they're a big player and you don't know anyone and you want to keep
many other companies in the process, all of whom have fans who are dedicated to them and provide some incentive for people to go to GenCon to begin with.
The precedent is still dangerous if you just stand by and say nothing when people are trying to push this kind of agenda on the West.
Versus the other agenda, we think that other agenda is being pushed on us too. So we're just anti that agenda. What's the issue there?
Let me interject a little
bit.
Okay.
Israel is a democratic nation based on Western principles. They're
that doesn't allow Jews and non-Jews to marry.
Yeah.
There are
Western principles
that break international law, that are bombing children. Yeah, I mean, this isn't really. I get that you want to keep pushing this democracy thing. You stop beating your people, and then we'll call you a democracy. But your people are allowed to protest.
Okay.
Burning
can I ask a question? Can I ask a question really quickly, please? So
quickly, but then I have a question to maybe get us back on track.
So RPG pundit and Izzy, your goat. So what do you guys think about Israel holding land auctions here in the United States that are only open to Jews, so only Jews can purchase this property, and it is specifically property in the illegally occupied areas of the West Bank? What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's racist for them to only sell to Jews and to advertise these as Anglo neighborhoods? Do you think that's racist?
Wait, what neighborhoods? I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
They advertise these areas as Anglo neighborhoods that they're populating.
What areas?
In the West Bank, in the illegally occupied areas of the West Bank. Yeah,
to America.
These are only open to Jews. No, if you're not a Jew, you cannot buy this property.
Okay, just a fact check here. Anglo in this context means English speaking.
Don't do it, Wick. I'm begging.
Anglo means English speaking.
Yeah, it just means English speaking. That's what they say. They wouldn't say just English speaking. They say Anglo specifically because they mean English speaking. That makes sense, I guess. What do you guys think about that?
Only open for Jews?
It is only open for Jews
because the ethnicity is you're only allowed to be Jewish if you buy. Kind of like how you guys have birthright trips where you try to convince people to come over and also buy land and stay there, just like you ship over Americans to live in Israel, but they're Jewish.
Pundit,
specifically Jews.
Yeah, pundit, go ahead.
A group of protesters attacked a Jewish synagogue in Los Angeles.
Are you going to answer his question?
What was happening in the synagogue?
Assaulted women.
Answer his question. Answer his question.
Hey, hold on. Every time you guys talk, we can't hear him. So you gotta let him finish before you start going off. Finish, please.
They assaulted a large number of Jews, and the supposed excuse was that there was this auction taking place there.
Oh, interesting. Is that a lie? Is that true that the auction was taking place there?
I cannot confirm or deny it. I'm not sure.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you haven't looked it up at all because you've taken the pro-Israel side of the narrative without any kind of research. Even though this fucking auction was publicized all over the fucking internet, and you can pull flyers of this right now. You can pull it up if you want to. You can also pull videos of the other side of the protest where the Zionists are saying "Send Edwards, go home" as soon as they got there and throwing eggs at people and trying to pull off people's headdresses. But you're going to ignore that and just say, "Oh, well, they attacked Jews at a synagogue, so therefore they're anti-Semites." You're a fucking idiot.
I just want to say I appreciate Izzy pointing out that she's against illegal settlements. I'm not just saying that so that she could get me a good deal at one of these auctions. I was going to ask whether or not.
Jimmy, can you stop strawmanning me about that again? Like seriously, I just
never
said
strawman you. You don't know what you're saying.
I apologize.
Okay, I'm going to read some
no,
super chats.
You don't know what you're saying.
Gang, I'm going to read some super chats, make a little money. Gang, if you want to get in some super chats, now's the time. Send me some money, and I will read what you say, and we'll see how they go. If
They
you're
gotta
on
be $10
Twitch,
or up, people. Come on.
Well, unfortunately, they've $5 both times, one Canadian. Ew, but we'll work with it. Testicle Johnson for $5 Canadian. Would like to note that Sherlock Holmes still hasn't answered Doobie's question. Thank you for the $5 Canadian.
I remember the question if you want me to ask it again.
We can get to that. And then $5 from Poncho Goblin. Question for Pundit. Why did you why did you admit to grooming a minor on your blog and then in your recent defense say, well, they're an adult now?
All right, so I guess I better respond to that. Poncho Goblin is a little troll who has been furious with me after he was one of very few people that gets banned from the RPG site, which is usually a free speech site. So you've got to really, really try to get yourself banned. And since then, he's been spreading all kinds of disinformation. The thing he's referring to there is on my blog, which I had before I switched over to YouTube. I mean, the blog is still there, right? But I don't really post to it anymore except to post videos. I had at one point had an entry about kids playing RPGs for kids, you know, and I've never thought RPGs for kids were a good idea because really that's usually just a way for nerd parents to try to rope their kids into playing games when they can't find a gaming group. But I commented there that the only time that I ever had a kid in one of my campaigns was in my World of the Last Sun campaign, which is a campaign that's been going on now for over 11 years.
Okay.
It's a Dungeon Crawl Classics campaign for those of you who know what that is. And this was a kid who was there because his dad was a player, and you know, he was like 9 years old. And DCC is a regular RPG. It's not an RPG for kids. It's just an RPG like Dungeons and Dragons, right? And I commented on the blog that the kid was a complete badass in the game. He was playing a wizard, and in Dungeon Crawl Classics, you have this effect that if you're a spellcaster, each of your spells can have like a strange effect that gets rolled randomly that happens when you cast it. And he got one where every time
the
you
master
cast,
comes over and gives you a big sloppy kiss.
Hey, we're gonna have to let him answer.
No.
Hold on, we're gonna have to let him answer this uninterrupted. Yeah.
He's going a little long there.
One of these possible effects that he rolled on Magic Missile, which is one of the most popular kind of combat spells that a magician can get, is that every time you cast the spell, your character switches gender, right? So basically, every time he would cast Magic Missile, he'd turn into a girl. And then if he casts it again, he'll turn back into a guy, etc. Right? So the character, right? And he took the Poncho Goblin is taking that to mean that somehow I was trying to groom this kid into transsexualism or something, you know, which is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's.
And I've then pointed out that all of this happened. Like the kid was 9 when he was playing. He's the same person now, who is very much not. As far as I know, he's not transgender. He still identifies as a guy. Is now, I think he's 18 or 19 years old. And he just recently got in touch with me asking for advice on how to run his first RPG campaign. So, because, you know, Dungeon Crawl Classics was the best game he ever played in, you know.
So to be clear,
so that's the story. And Poncho Goblin's trying to turn that into I groomed a minor on my blog, right?
So to be clear,
Poncho, can you send me evidence,
hold on, stop. I just want to be clear, just so we know, and everyone's, because this is a serious accusation, that you're denying the accusation. It's not true. It was made up.
It's nonsense, right?
Got
It's
you.
just
Okay.
the nonsense that this guy does every time I show up on a show. I should have probably warned you about that.
Fair
Poncho, can you send Wick all relevant evidence, please?
I'm not going to do that right now. If I have concerns, I will ask him in private. But it sounds look, I have people going around spreading rumors about me all the time, so I understand it. If evidence comes out that you did groom a minor, then we'll have a different conversation. Sounds good? Sounds good. Okay, let's get back to the topic, gang. Let's get back on it if we can. I understand we're going all sorts of places. This has a lot of different threads, but I wanted to hear a little more about the idea of banning politics, right? Because that's what it is at the end of the day. You are banning a political ideology, right? Would you be okay, Doobie and Ollie, for them to ban Republicans, Trump supporters? Do you think it's fair if a award show, let's assume they were popular, okay, an award show for a game that is pretty neutral, at least politically, to say, if you voted for Trump or if you made a post supporting Trump, we won't let you on our show. Do you think that, regardless of the legality of it, do you think that's okay morally? What do you think? Why or why not?
Yeah, I think it's fine. So I think it's also stupid. So to be clear, I think banning Zionists is stupid. I think banning any political ideology is pretty stupid. I think they should allow anybody to come in and win an award, right? But if they're going to have these restrictions, sure, go for it. I don't care if who the fuck they're banning.
Yeah, I don't really care to morally judge someone on this type of shit. With the gay couple and the bakers, I stood with the bakers. I mean, if you don't want to make a cake, don't make a cake. If you don't want to support these people, don't support these people.
Yeah, but that's a little different, right? That's a little different than saying, hey, you aren't able to get in on our award show. You aren't able to receive any credit for any of your work. We're not going to. You're basically not a person to us if you have this political ideology.
I mean, what if they push themselves as a Democratic game award?
Yeah, at that point, they would just be like a Democrat or lefty.
That's what they're. Yeah,
it's
a progressive. It's a progressive game award.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should point out that
I don't think they should. I think it's dumb, to Doobie's point. It is dumb to do that. But like, if you want to and you want to do the political suicide or the fucking business suicide, go for it.
Okay, Ruben.
The Crit Awards are basically new and pretty much were unknown until this whole thing happened. But the major RPG awards, things like the Ennies and the Diana Jones Award, are in fact de facto, though not de jure, they are leftist awards, right? Because they never end up. If there's somebody who is a game designer who is known to have conservative sympathies, they don't get nominated for awards anyway. So I'm never going to get nominated for any of those awards, and I don't particularly care, because almost all of them are kind of these internal circle jerks of this very tiny kind of industry, But it's so it is in fact something that does happen, whether you like it or not. And I'm sure that, I guess you could have somebody, maybe Venture Satanis or someone, come up with a conservative RPG award, but that would also be stupid, And in a way, I'm kind of in agreement here that the notion of it is stupid, right? Because at that point, it's one thing if somebody makes an RPG that is explicitly left wing or right wing, like an RPG that is taking a strong political position from the real world and putting it in as a kind of propaganda in their game. But most RPGs don't try to do that. There are some that definitely have in recent years. And some of those, if they're left-wing RPGs, gain awards probably just because of that, But it's the majority of gamers don't want their RPGs to be political propaganda, not real-world politics. There can be political themes in RPGs, but there's a difference between an RPG that might have certain political themes in kind of a broad sense, and RPGs that are very clearly just made to push a certain political message, and those are still rare and mostly unpopular.
Follow up. And this is not just to you, but to everyone, right? Do you think that that's currently happening in the RPG space overall, like with WotC and D&D, with other popular TTRPGs, Vampire the Masquerade? Do you think it is becoming more and more politicized? If so, how?
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
It's primarily about porting different legacies and different audiences. But not on a political basis, primarily.
You're not wrong about that, but it's also specifically that the more corporate an RPG company is, the bigger an RPG company is, the more likely they are to push this particular kind of agenda. And Wizards of the Coast has been doing that increasingly. They're the owners of D&D right now, and they've been doing that progressively more intensely over the last several years, which has coincidentally tracked with a progressive decline in their book sales. So it also shows that that's not really what the typical gamers want.
What do you so Izzy, you mentioned that you don't think it was happening at all. Can you expound upon that?
Well, I might be living in a bubble, but I haven't seen any politicization specifically in Israel, in tabletop community in Israel. No politicization over there. But again, this might be just a bubble, yeah.
Fair enough. Rube, do you think are RPGs becoming political?
I think they're not except in like this vague corporate sense where like you have, all right, we're allowed to do necropolitics now. We're allowed to have orcs that look like this or elves that look like this or whatever. It's just it's no, it's not political at all.
No,
it
not
is
woke.
the only quote politics tags that you could apply to politics just so happen to also fit neatly inside of the griftosphere's preferred circuit of typical talking points, where they complain about there's a gay person here, there's a woman here, there's a fat woman here, there's a black person here, and you just complain about that for super chats over and over and over again while producing nothing of value whatsoever.
Okay, what do we think, Doobie, and what do we think, Ali?
Not political, only marketing.
Gotcha.
I actually agree with Ash with creativity. I think that if anything, they're attempting to be more inclusive, and that just tracks along the woke agenda, quote unquote. So as they're attempting to widen the net and dumb things down a bit, so there's a lower bar of entry, it's going to seem to those people like they're pandering to wokies or trans people or some shit. But I don't think that's true.
Okay. Last word on this, Ali.
I don't play
Fair enough. Okay,
RPGs. I'm just happy Izzy has time to have an opinion on if RPGs are gone progressive or not.
Yeah, it's not often we hear from a Nazi these days.
Wow, you guys are dipshits. Like, seriously.
Okay. I think we are kind of winding down on this particular topic. I think we've covered.
Does that mean I can't buy anymore?
Buy any more what?
The land.
Land. He wants land. He wants cheap land.
Okay, you guys are making jokes. Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to give you guys closing thoughts on this. When it comes to the Crit Awards being, first of all, banning Zionists from receiving an award, how ethical is that regardless of the legality? And then when it comes to GenCon, how wise or unwise were they in order to kick them to the side? Give us final thoughts on that, and then we'll kind of close out this panel. We might still stream after this. I don't know yet, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to start with Ali, and we're going to end with Doobie. So, Ali, give us your final thoughts.
Smart, not whatever. I don't really care. I honestly am just glad that this award show took a stance, or the Crit Awards took a stance. The GenCon let them go, and then they doubled down and stood on their stance. I think that's honestly awesome. Outside of whether it's smart or not, I don't really fucking care. But yeah, I'll leave it on that.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Where can people find you?
Sociologic on Twitter for right now. Thank you.
Check them out, gang. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. Pundit, what are your thoughts?
Well, actually, there's one thing I would kind of I mentioned it earlier, but I wanted to get back to it a little bit, is that, again, the Crit Awards, they got the conditions for being nominated. They looked up sponsors. They did all of that, and they had all the nominations set. And it was only after all of that that they added the anti-Zionist clause. And I'm wondering if any of the people maybe on the other side, from my side of the argument, think that in itself was kind of sneaky and disingenuous, right? Because there are now people that were given the appearance, and Chaosium made some kind of a statement about this, where they didn't quite denounce the Crit Awards, but Chaosium is one of the, by the way, just for the sake of the guy that doesn't play, Chaosium is another big company that produces RPGs, and they had some of their products got nominated. and they came out with a statement saying we had no idea about this clause, right? And so I think that I would kind of like to know if you think that kind of the stealth method by which they added that clause after the fact of getting the nominations and getting sponsors isn't in some way, disingenuous.
I'll let them respond. Go ahead.
It's sneaky, but according to you guys, they got what they wanted. Everyone's talking about it, so lose-win.
Doobie, any thoughts?
No.
Okay.
I think it's fine for them to just sneak it in. I don't give a fuck.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough. Bandit, any where can people find you? Any final thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not sure whether GenCon took a moral stance or whether they were, they took a, saving their own asses stance, which is, I think, probably the more likely of the two, because I suspect that there's a lot of people in GenCon that would probably have the same kind of views as the people in the Crit Awards, but they just realized that they couldn't do it without getting into trouble. But I'm glad at the result, and it's true that it comes at the point that the Crit Awards got attention to themselves, but it also means that they don't get to do this under the banner of GenCon, which is a kind of virtue capture of saying we're doing this award ceremony in the same place that the major award ceremonies happen, right? So it was it would have been a way to legitimize themselves that now they don't get to pretend that they have that.
Okay. Where can people find you?
Well, on YouTube, the RPG Pundit. I am also on X, where I'm also the RPG Pundit. It's at Kazimir Urbanski. And you can pick up my products if you go to my YouTube channel, look at any of the descriptions of any of my videos, you'll see links to all my products. My latest product is Baptism of Fire, which is it's been the #1 best-selling OSR RPG for since it came out, since April until just around now, and it's a big hit. And if you want an alternative to kind of the same boring corporate stuff that D&D comes out with these days, you should check out my games and the rest of the old school Renaissance, the OSR. It's a indie movement that's based on Dungeons and Dragons old school, and it's got such a variety of stuff. And indie publishing is the way to go.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here. And gang, just to let you guys know, in the description of this video on YouTube, we're gonna have all the links to all their YouTubes, Twitters, Discord servers, etc. And you can check it there. You just click on their names or click on the link, depending, and you should be able to go to wherever they wanted me to send you. But thank you for being here. Izzy, you're up.
Well, you can find me on Twitter, and goat_Izzy_Keck. Well, I just would like that this subject, like the tabletop RPG games, would stay non-political. I don't like politics being brought into it. Not mentioning that it's wokeism brought into it. It's just, I think it's insane. It's stupid, and I don't want this in my games. Okay, I want to play like a normal person. I don't want to talk politics. I do that the rest of my day. This is my little holy thing. Don't touch it with politics. So yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Gelatinous Rube, please.
Yeah, so I sympathize with Izzy here. I use games for escapism primarily. It's cool to explore political themes in them sometimes, or they're usually implicitly endorsed political themes like libertarianism in D&D. You just go around killing a bunch of powerful people and taking their shit. It's pretty cool. But I think that had the Crit Awards not been kicked out, nothing would have happened. But instead, everybody who's been appraised of the situation and giving this fascinating update from Casimir Urbanski is now aware that there are laws preventing you from, in a public place, protesting certain political ideologies in America. And if you do so, they're not just laws that are on the books and kind of, just in some backwater, some random statute that never gets enforced, nobody pays attention to it. No, there are watchdogs on the internet who are ready to, at the drop of a hat, a cabal, if you will, at the drop of a hat, attack your organization, attack the organization hosting you, and attempt to interfere with your commerce, and right to free association, and right to freedom of speech. And what would have just gone under the rug for an unknown award show has instead garnered the support of a massive number of RPG companies with a massive number of consumers who have been suddenly, normally gamers are kind of shut away from the world aside from complaining about what's woke or anti-woke or what's woke or anti-woke enough, have suddenly been informed that there's this workaround to freedom of speech and workaround to freedom of association and freedom of commerce that is actively applied against maybe people that they don't like, but action that could be taken against them at any moment by a group of ostensibly like just freestanding watchdogs. I am happy with the outcome.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on Gelatinous Rube on YouTube and Gelatinous Rube, or at Rube Jelly on Twitter.
Okay, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Last but certainly not least, Doobie. Doobie, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
You're muted.
Sorry, I'm here.
Go ahead.
I
Thoughts.
was dealing with my disgusting wife. But sorry. So I guess what I think we should take from this, right, is that just try to put yourself in. Ali, I think you're Palestinian, right?
Lebanese, but
Lebanese, yeah. Well, just try to put yourself in the boots of a Palestinian person, right? Palestinian American, Palestinian person anywhere. Right? Imagine that you're being told that you don't belong in your own home, that your ancestors aren't real, that your suffering doesn't matter, that you are not allowed to be angry at the brutal oppression you're subjected to, that your very existence is a threat to someone else's nation, someone else's life, someone else's family. That's the reality that for Palestinians living under Zionism today, right? Just as it was for countless victims of other forms of ethnic nationalism throughout history. I think that we shouldn't allow ourselves to be like desensitized to the evil of racial nationalism, of these racist ideologies, even when they're being promoted by people who are like historically the victims of them. So we can acknowledge that the Jews were victims of German nationalism, of Nazism, but that doesn't give them the right to do the same shit to somebody else, right? And we shouldn't be afraid to say that, even if it's inconvenient politically. And I think that the Crit Awards really should be lauded in some sense for having the backbone to speak truth to power in a nation that can't get enough of Israel's cock, right? It just can't. Like we saw our presidential candidates yesterday fucking gobbling it on stage, fighting over who loves Israel more. So I think that this fucking double standard that exists with Zionism and other like racist ethnic ideologies is something that should be spoken about. It's something that should be called out and shouted down any time it pops up, because otherwise you end up with Nazis like Izzy here, who feel totally fine saying it's great that the United
Jewish
States.
Nazi.
Yeah, you're a Jewish Nazi. Totally fine that the United States doesn't allow its own citizens to protest a fucking country across on the other side of the planet. It's fucking ridiculous.
Where can people find you, Doobie?
The politics server on Discord, the best and biggest politics server on the platform. Discord.gg/politics. Okay. That's where you'll find me.
Gang, thank you for this discussion. I know it was a very niche topic today, but I was interested in discussing it. I thank you to all my guests. This was a passionate discussion, but I appreciate how you mostly behaved. Okay, mostly. Gang, we got some great shows coming up next week. We are going to have Adam Mockler coming on to host a call-in show with us. He does some great work. Tune in, call in. That's probably going to be Friday. We are also going to be having what I think is a pretty big deal coming up. I can't announce it yet, but subscribe to my Twitter and you'll be able to find it at Wick TV. I'll be announcing it there really soon as we confirm the dates. It should be great. There's a lot to talk about. We're not ending the stream, but we are ending the show. So wave goodbye to these wonderful people, and we will see you guys later.
Doobie, thank you for carrying, by the way. It's nice to see someone so informed drop facts, especially when it's a frog.
You're welcome.
Okay. Gang. We have to talk about something. We have to discuss those debates last night, okay? You guys see them? You guys see the presidential debate here in America? Did you see Biden versus Trump? Did you see what happened? That was crazy. $10 from Draco Poll, no message, just because. Well, thank you for those $10. That really supports the channel. It really helps me out. Dropped a whole bunch of opinions. Yes, I have. Look, there's a lot going on with this. There's a lot of people in the Democratic Party who say that Biden had a disastrous debate. And I agree with them. It was bad, gang. It was a terrible showing. There's no sugarcoating it. He looked old. He looked slow. He didn't look with it. He had trouble forming sentences. It was bad. However, Trump didn't look good. Let's keep that in mind. He continued to ramble. He never answered half the questions asked to him. He wasn't able to deal with the subject at hand. He was petty. He was kind of an asshole. And perhaps worse, he wasn't able to land any real slam dunks, except for maybe one or two, against Biden, who has had the worst debate performance of his life. A lot of people are calling right now for Biden to step down. I think that's a mistake. I think that the Democratic Party should stick with Biden. I think Biden is still the best candidate in this race to defeat Donald Trump. Why do I think that? Well, if you saw his rally today at North Carolina, in Raleigh, North Carolina, I wish that Biden had been on the debate stage. I do. I wish he was on the debate stage because that Biden was with it. He was competent. He was able to deliver his lines effectively. It was a great showing, actually. One debate does not a disaster make. Let's keep this in perspective, ladies and gentlemen. It's the eternal headline. Dems in disarray. Democrats panicking over everything. They always do. Every election cycle this happens. The Democrats go into panic mode and they are quick to want to flee the ship for what looks like silly, petty reasons. Okay, this always happens. Every time, not just in national races, but in local races as well. I'm a PA resident, a resident of Pennsylvania. I was in Pennsylvania, and I saw the debate between Fetterman and Oz. I don't know how many of you saw that live. Fetterman and Oz, talk about one of the worst debates I've ever seen. One of the worst debate performances ever. Poor Fetterman. He had just had a stroke. It was obvious he had just had a stroke. His mental faculties were shot. As bad as Biden did, Fetterman couldn't form a coherent sentence at all during the whole debate. He was just unable to do so. But you know what? Debates don't decide elections. Votes decide elections. And when it comes down to it, and we saw what happened in Pennsylvania when the voters got to decide, Fetterman won it. Fetterman won it pretty handily, a 5-point spread. So any Democrat who's out there panicking right now, saying, oh no, Biden's toast, get it together. Screw your courage to the sticking place. Grow a spine. It's okay. Trust the plan. We got stuff going on. The alternative to abandon Biden, right, at this point is worse. Yes, we might lose. That might happen. But if we abandon Biden right now, we will lose. It won't be a chance. It will be a guarantee. We can't. It's too late. We work with what we got, gang. Votes decide elections. My thoughts. That's my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Rabid Wombat says Biden is toast. Abandon Biden at this point. Get a different candidate. It's not too late. Rabid, you're Canadian. Frankly. Okay. Who? Other than Biden, who? Kamala Harris? No. That would be worse. Gavin Newsom? Gavin Newsom could have won the debate, but he would lose the overall election. California's policies are just not nationally popular. He can't run on them. Not successfully. It won't work. He will do better in the debates. He will win the debates, but he will lose the vote. That's just how it is, ladies and gentlemen. Patty's Parlor says, my thoughts are you need to vote and you're better off with Trump. Well, Patty's Parlor, we disagree, but you're correct in that no matter what you believe, you should vote. I think that you have a duty as a citizen to vote, a responsibility to make your voice heard. So red, blue, center, whatever color libertarians are, I don't even know. Yeah, make sure you vote come November. And vote in the primaries that are coming up if they're coming up in your state. IMT says vote sync is right in. I don't know about that. Casimir Urbanski, RPG Pundit, says there's huge issues with even trying to get rid of Biden. He needs to either be taken out by the 25th Amendment, which is difficult, or he'd need to willingly step down, and Kamala would then have to. That's as well an issue here, right? Like can you imagine a situation where they throw out the votes cast for Biden in the primary? And believe it or not, we had a primary. They all voted. Biden was elected in the 2024 primaries, okay? He was voted into office to be the Democrats' nominee. Imagine throwing all those votes out and then playing kingmaker on the convention floor, what would have to happen? They would have the Democratic National Convention. It would be a closed convention. People would come in, the delegates and the superdelegates, and they would play kingmaker. They would decide who's going to be the next nominee. That would be a disaster. We can't even agree, right, on anything as a leftist coalition. Can you imagine the outcry if it's not your preferred nominee? If Newsom gets the nod instead of Bernie, for example, or if Bernie gets a nod instead of Newsom, right? They would tear each other apart. The reason primaries work is because we all get a voice, we all get a vote, and we're able to at least, despite the wonkiness of the rules and the conventions and things like that, and with superdelegates, etc., there's at least this illusion of being able to have a say in the matter. With doing this on the convention floor would cast that illusion aside. I don't think people would stand for it. I think that guarantees us a loss come November. It's just not something we can do, gang. It's just not something we can do. We need to make sure that Biden crosses that finish line. And we can. Look, he performed well at his rallies in North Carolina. If he can continue that energy, the energy he brought to the State of the Union, the energy he brought to the Howard Stern interviews, the energy he brought just today at North Carolina. If he brings that energy to the campaign trail, I think he has a shot, and I think he has a good shot because overall, his policies are popular. Regardless of whether you like them or not, his policies are popular with the American people, and I think he has the best shot. Now, it's still a coin toss. Still a coin toss coming in here, right? Trump's popular too. We can't wish that away. It's just true. And there is going to be a fight. Right? We are going to have to work for every single vote. And that's what I'm trying out here to do. The People's Elbow says, you're not seriously pimping Biden today for reading from a teleprompter, are you? Everyone reads from a teleprompter, okay? That happens. It wasn't just him reading from the teleprompter. It was his energy. It was his ability to deal with the words. He didn't stumble. He didn't get confused or anything like that. He was on point. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you can watch the rally for yourself, not just the clips, but the entire thing, and you can decide for yourself. Again, I can't sugarcoat it. Last night was bad, but that's the worst. That is literally the worst Biden has been. It's only up from here, gang. It's only up from here. I did watch it, People's Elbow. I did. Do I want to click on that link? Let's click on that link. Am I going to get copyright struck for this? I'll watch it on my own time. I don't want to get my channel copyright struck. But I appreciate you. I will click that up, and I will make sure to watch it.
You know the KC name, but can
you are linking me not something from the rally today. You're linking me him leaving the debate stage after the first presidential debate. Okay, I'm talking about today on the campaign trail at North Carolina. Do you have a clip from that you would like to showcase me that Biden was senile or dementia or a mental patient from North Carolina? Do you have something like that? I don't know. Okay. Char Asianable says, you can find videos of Biden gaffes that are like an hour long of Biden mumbling, getting lost, speaking nonsense, bro. I've seen those videos. He's old. I get it. We understand. Look, for me personally, okay? I don't care that he's old. I don't care that he mumbles sometimes. I don't care that he mixes things up sometimes. His policies are what I'm voting for. Straight up. I understand that I'm not the median voter here. I understand that I am a ideologue when it comes to voting blue. It's true. I am. I'm a Democrat. Sorry, gang. Right? It's a free speech platform. I don't agree with all of Biden's policies. I don't agree with all of Democrats' policies. There's a lot of Democrats I don't like. I'm glad Jamal Bowman got primaried. He needed to. I don't like that at all. I don't like that guy, right? Cori Bush coming up. I hope she gets primaried successfully as well. I'm very happy to have that happen. But this is the thing I'm doing right now. I want to keep the Democratic Party from turning into just MAGA but blue, okay? What happened to the Republican Party is their extremists took it over. They now run it. I don't want that to happen with the Democratic Party, so I'm fighting against that. No Kyle Mike says, rambling and bumbling through a speech is the norm for Trump, though. He just does it with more energy. True. No FX Live says, no, Biden has been bad for 3 years now, more like 50. Like 50 years? Well, you just never like Biden? That's fine. Beerwater says, woo bucks. I do get a check from Progressive Victory. That's true. But woo is no longer associated with Progressive Victory. So, fake news. Char Actionable says, I want 90s crime bill Biden. Super Blue says, boo Biden. INMT30 says, I feel sad for him in jail sometimes. And I do too, right? Look, it would be different if Biden himself wanted to step down. Then we could have a conversation. But to try to force Biden out is just political suicide. Don't do it, gang. Don't do it. It's not good. We shouldn't do it. Gang, if you haven't liked the stream yet, why haven't you? Okay, I've given you really good content today. I'm giving you really good content today. No, I don't want to exit. So hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. Beerwater says, Wick, even Morning Joe said he wasn't up for the job. Look, this is something that will happen. There are a lot of leftist pundits who don't like Biden. They wanted Bernie. They wanted their socialist little pick. And they don't like mainstream Democrats. They don't like moderate Democrats. And so they're going to use this opportunity to try to push to oust Biden. They've been doing this for a long time. Nina Turner, Breonna Joyce Gray, all these people have been waiting, salivating to push Biden out because they don't like moderates. They want their little social justice Democrats to get in power and to control the party, even though they can't win elections on their own. They can't. No one likes their policies for a reason. So they're trying to hijack the Democratic Party to get these things done. And so they hate that Biden stops them from doing that. And so they're absolutely going to try to primary Biden. They're absolutely going to try to get Biden out of there. They don't like him for a lot of reasons. Some, fair enough, right? Some, fair enough. But a lot of it is because he keeps them from their worst excesses, and they don't want to be kept from their worst excesses. So when, like, pundits that you see, these elite Democrats, I don't care about them. I don't care what they say. What I care about is what the Democratic voter says. The people who cast their ballots, despite Rashida Tlaib and all these other people saying to vote for ceasefire now, not vote for Biden, to cast your ballot as a protest vote, despite all those people pushing for that, people went out and they were excited to cast a vote in the primary for Joe Biden. Those are the voices that I care about. Those are the people who move this country. Those are the people who I want to make sure have a voice in American politics. I don't give a shit. Morning Joe has a show. He can go on a show and he can spout his bullshit, okay? What I'm here to do is make sure that Trump loses this election, right? Because I feel that he is a unique threat to democracy in America. He just is. He's a unique threat to the world's stability, right? We have a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of that is because Trump didn't do his goddamn job when he was in office. He let these fires smolder. He did nothing to put them out, and then Biden has to clean up the mess, okay? And Biden has done mostly, few exceptions, mostly pretty damn good. So, yeah. Violence solves everything says, you here on your show spouting your BS? Yes, and I'll continue to do so. And you can't stop me. Ha, ha, ha. Right? But you can't donate if you like what I have to say, or even if you hate me. Patty's Parlor says, that's not true, Wick. I disagree. I think it is. I think we can look at Ukraine as a very great example of this, right? I think that Trump gave Putin permission, for lack of a better term, to just kind of go crazy, soften the ground up, right, with the little green men and all these things. Trump did the bare minimum when it came to that. He should have been more invested. He should have nipped it in the bud. He should have been better on that policy. But now, because he was not, because he was weak, they were able to prep, they were able to soften the ground, and Russia was able to invade Ukraine. And I blame that on two people. I blame that on Putin, first and foremost. Okay, he's number one. I also blame it on Trump. I think Trump's just wrong. He didn't handle it correctly. Tessie Johnson, who do you think is better at golf, though? I have no idea. Man, who plays golf? Like, first of all, I've tried to play golf. I don't enjoy it. I like mini golf, putt-putt golf. I enjoy putt-putt golf a lot. Putt-putt golf is pretty fun. Kinetic Pause says they are both famously cheats at golf. Are they? I don't actually know. That might be true. Like, anyone who's saying that Biden's perfect is wrong. If anyone's out there telling you, like, Biden did well last night, they're lying to you, gang. He did very poorly. But that doesn't mean we should toss him aside. Does anyone want to call in about anything? I know today's show went a little short. There just wasn't much to discuss. But if anyone wants to call in and talk about anything they want for the next few minutes, we can. I wanna make sure I go at least till 8. So yeah, just jump backstage if you'd like, and we can talk to you and we'll see what you have to say. Oh, Ash, are you wanting to talk? You're live.
Oh, I was still inside of the. Give me a moment because I need to
Did you
mute
not
you.
want to talk? If you don't want to talk, I can. Mute you.
Always. Wick, I always have time for you.
Oh,
you're very nice to me. No, so what did you think? I usually open this up by just asking you questions. I think I'm going to repeat it. What did you think of the reaction asking? What did you think of asking Biden to step down? What does that tell you about people's opinions?
So I can understand it. This happened, by the way. This happens every time a Democrat does poorly at a debate, or something happens where they've been asking Biden to step down since 2020, honestly. A lot of the people who I see on Twitter calling for Biden to step down are people who were doing that in 2020. Nina Turner, Brianna Joyce Gray, these types of people. Now, it has extended. I will grant you that. There are more people today that are calling for it. I understand why. I think it's a bad idea. I think they're letting their fear get to the better of them. I think that they watched the debate with an eye towards age rather than an eye towards substance. And I think that they got high on their own supply. And what I mean by that is that they took the talking points that were being spread around and they kind of it framed the debate for them in such a way that I think it won't for the average voter. And so I understand why it's happening. I just think it's wrong-headed. It's wrong-footed. I don't care about the people who are always calling for it. They were never voting for Biden in the first place. But the people who are new, who are calling for it, I just think they're wrong. In fact, spoiler alert, one of the debates I might have be coming up soon is a debate on this topic with a couple pretty big names on it. So yeah, I just want to get.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know. Do you think that the age question, and by extension the question of proper mental faculties in the average American voter, do you think that it engenders confidence, or do you think the fear that somebody is going to that somebody else is controlling this from behind the scenes, a normal American fear,
master, right?
A puppet master? No, just the idea people who have soft power and can just kind of sneak legislation through, sneak signatures in, or sneak policy decisions that an ailing leader can't necessarily keep track of.
I mean, this has been the case this is why people have criticized omnibus bills for a while. No one reads them. No one reads them. They sneak in these, what do they call them? There's a name for them. And it's escaping me at the moment. But they're these silly little bills. They sneak these addendums into these large bills, okay, in order to tie them to different things. Now, this can be done to kill a bill. They call that the poison pill, right? Like when anything abortion-related is tied to one of these omnibus packages, that usually needs to get litigated out of it because then one side or the other just simply won't touch it because it just will alienate them for their base. And so this happens a lot. I think that's a problem. I don't think it's a unique problem for Biden. I don't think that Trump was reading these bills either, to be frank with you.
He wasn't, but there was I'm not necessarily arguing from how many policies did or didn't make it through, but rather in the American voter's mind. I mean, Trump is seen as somebody who diminished the overall, diminished economic regulations and diminished the power of the state over the economy and over other facets of private life. And the interference of the state in private life and their attachments, even though that isn't necessarily always the case. Do you think that... I'm asking because that impression is now competing with the impression of an ailing leader who will not be able to defend himself from undue influence around him.
No, I understand. Well, I think one of the things that is... are we talking from the normie perspective here?
From both. I mean, give me
my
your
perspective. Or normie. Okay. From my perspective, I think the evidence that he is inured or I guess immune would be a better term to too much outside pressure is the fact that he hasn't stepped down, right? Even when they called him to, right? Like even when they keep calling him to, and he's announced that no, I'm not stepping down. Fuck you guys, right? So I think that there is a lot of stubbornness in old people. I've worked with old people before, so it makes it hard to handle them. Okay, so there is that. That's a pro and a con, to be clear, because I don't think influence is bad. I think influence is neutral. I wish to God someone had influenced Trump not to do certain things, right? I wish someone had been able to influence Obama to stick to his red line. I blame Obama for Ukraine too, by the way. Like, Obama had a lot of failures in that. Yeah, I think that sometimes influence is actually really good. And how I judge this, right, from my perspective, is on who they surround themselves with. So if they are being influenced, who are they being influenced by? And I look at the cabinet appointees. I look at the appointees to other positions within their administration. And then I can make my decision based on that. I think it's telling that people who are in the previous Trump administration, by and large, think he's a snake. They're not supporting him now. They don't like him now. And I think speaks to his lack of leadership abilities. And whereas Biden is almost the opposite case, right? To a fault in a lot of ways, right? That they are circling the wagons around Biden, even though he does have some weaknesses in some areas. So I think that's there. From the normie perspective, they already know Biden's old. This ain't a secret. No one's surprised. They've seen him for the last 4 years. They know. They're aware. I think that calculation is already baked into the cake. I don't think they've already made up their minds whether they care about that or not.
Okay, that seems reasonable. What do you think would have to happen to change their minds?
For the normie voter, it'd have to be something crazy, right? Like if one of them drops, like has a stroke on stage, right, or drops dead, right, or something like that. It can't be minor. And I know that you guys, like, not you guys, but I know that a lot of Republicans right now are trying to overblow, right, how bad last night was. They don't need to. They could just point to he couldn't form a coherent sentence at several points. He mumbled. He lost his train of thought several times, right? He looked slow, old, and not with it. But they try to one-up that, right, and say, well, he's obviously got dementia. They're injecting him with secret cocktails. They have handlers that are training and scripting him to do certain things. And I think that's where people just don't buy that. And they know he's
Isn't
old.
that mostly a fun meme?
For some, yes. For some, no.
Okay.
What's the law that no matter how sarcastic you're being, there's going to be someone who just takes you seriously?
Poe's law.
Yeah, there you go.
Right?
I don't know what the exact law is, but there's one of those, right?
Yeah. No, that's a completely fair perspective. I just worry that in cases like this, I don't know, like Jared Kushner is seen as having an undue influence over the Trump administration and was widely criticized on a regular basis during the Trump administration. Many people still blame him for the results of the 2020 election.
What was his name? I'm blanking. I need to take my brain medication. There was the Bush vice president, Dick Cheney. That was it. Dick Cheney. Everyone would point to him as being the power behind the throne, the worm tongue whispering into George W. Bush's ear, right? There was all these talks. This is something that happens with every president of my lifetime. With Bill Clinton, they thought Hillary was secretly running the show, okay? Right? So every president that I can think of in my lifetime, there's been rumors of there's these secret influential puppet string pullers behind the scenes, and they will take them to account. Jared Kushner is simply one in a long line of many that have been accused of this. Sometimes it's right, to be clear. Obviously,
yeah, when it came to Dick Cheney, I don't know if he's viewed favorably in the eyes of the American public since.
He is not. He is not. He was back in the day amongst the Republicans during that. I mean, they won re-election, right? They won their election in 2000. They won re-election in 2004. So at least most of the country was okay with it.
I feel like that was a different time. I feel like opinions have switched in a very different direction. Like the amount of, take today's panel, I think the amount of crap that Israel gets nowadays is unheard of. Would it be unthinkable to anybody in the, anybody? Like 10 years ago. 5 years ago.
It is, and this is where I would actually agree with RPG Pundit, honestly, is it's okay to discriminate against quote-unquote Zionists in a way it isn't okay to discriminate against almost any other nationality, any other group, any other thing. It's okay to call for the death of this nation, and no one bats an eye. And I think that I don't know if I'd go so far to say it's anti-Semitism, but it does raise a lot of red flags. And I think that it does require you to turn a blind eye to a lot of anti-Semitism.
Does it matter if it's necessarily if the person doing it, if the person who is anti-Zionist is anti-Semitic?
No, I think that you can uphold racist or bigoted ideas without being racist or bigoted yourself. I think that you can be anti-Semitic outcomes can come from your actions, regardless of whether or not you hold a single bone of hatred in your body. I think that's more than possible. People who stand out.
There's a point we didn't really get to in the debate.
Sure. Well, it was crazy. Like, I need to talk to RPG Pundit about fixing his audio, because every time anyone talked, we couldn't hear a word he said, right? It just cut him out. I don't know what that was, but it was a problem for the
audio sensitivity, maybe.
Side. Yeah, I don't know. But when it comes to the synagogue, there was a protest in Los Angeles a few days ago, over the weekend, I believe. And
I watched your show on this to prepare.
Yes, one of the things that was being chanted outside of the synagogue is "Long live the Intifada." And these are one of those things where, like, I can see an argument that protesting outside of a synagogue isn't necessarily anti-Semitic. But if you're also chanting "Long live the Intifada," you're either severely ignorant on what the Intifada was, or you're kind of anti-Semitic, and that's just true, right? What the Intifada was a period of time. There was a couple of them, right? So the second Intifada is what I guess is people refer to most in this, is a period of time.
Is that the worst one?
140 suicide bombers, came through and blew up men, women, and children in Israel. And it was a terrible, terrible few years. A lot of people died. It affected the psyche of the Israeli people. Like, we forget, the Israeli government used to be left-leaning. It used to be pretty left. It only became very far right in the last 20 years after the Second Intifada, because the Jewish people, the Israeli people, they looked at what was happening, and they looked at all this death and destruction that was being rained on them, and they said, we need someone who's going to keep us safe from this. Netanyahu stepped up. He did a poor job, to be clear. Netanyahu's kind of a monster. He did a terrible job. He does bear blame for I won't say allowing, but he didn't do enough to stop October 7th from happening. And I think that the Israeli people will hold him to account for that. And I hope that one day he answers for his crimes there. But
can they?
Yeah. Go on.
Can they, realistically speaking?
Yeah, they can. They have a democratic system over there. It's not the same as ours, obviously. There's a little bit of a difference, but they can get him out of office. Whether they will or not remains to be seen. But he's deeply unpopular over there, and that's a problem for him. I say all this to say that if you're chanting outside of a synagogue in Canada or Los Angeles or somewhere, and you're chanting "Long live the Intifada," that's not anti-Zionism. That's just anti-Semitism at that point.
Where do you think the line is? Like, Doobie was asking you this the other day, and I couldn't help but wonder in my head, when do the people protesting become worse? Or is there a point at which, this is sort of like a subset of the entire Israel versus Palestine debate, I suppose. What can one person do that justifies just about anything at them? And then I had a funny follow-up. What if it was a slave auction at the synagogue?
Look, obviously protesters, I don't have a problem with them protesting what was happening there. I have a problem with how they were doing it. It's like if I didn't like the Supreme Court, and I went to Clarence Thomas's home, and I wanted to protest his decisions on the Supreme Court because I didn't like his decisions. And fun fact, I don't. I think Clarence Thomas is a terrible justice, right? But that in and of itself wouldn't be racist. But it can become racist depending on how I'm protesting. If I'm burning a cross outside of his house, that's racist, regardless of why or the righteousness of my cause. I am now being racist towards this guy because I'm doing something that is racist.
Well, that's what I'm asking. It's not whether or not it's racist. It's when what does someone have to do in order to make them worse than being racist
I don't
during
know
a protest?
exactly. Well, it's not about being worse. It's like, I don't think we need anti-Semitism. I don't think we need to be racist to combat anything. There's nothing that I can think of, and maybe this is lack of imagination on my part, but there's nothing I can think of that requires racism in order to stop.
What if Clarence Thomas was hosting a slave auction?
Again, you protest that, but you don't have to call him the N-word.
But would it make you more? Which would make you more upset?
The slave auction thing, but we
Okay.
would have issues with the N-word as
We're
well.
we're gonna get to you guys in a moment here.
But yes,
Okay.
obviously. So yes, I understand that the people who are like, okay, yeah, I know that there are problems with this protest. I think that what the Israelis are doing here in the synagogue are worse, but I acknowledge that it is bad. That's not what's happening. What's happening is a lot of people are saying that's not anti-Semitic at all, and how dare you conflate this? That's what they're doing. It's gaslighting. It's telling me I am not hearing what I'm hearing. I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. And the group that bears the brunt of that blatant disregard of anti-Semitism are Jewish people, Jewish American citizens that are being beaten, that are being targeted, that are being harassed. And I think that's just wrong.
That was pretty miserable. That was the major focus of the debate that we were having a moment ago, was whether or not, okay, can you conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, and should you do so? I think a lot of people nowadays, they've been hit with this for so long. Any mention of anti-Zionism is, we immediately go to the well of, you just hate Jewish people. It's like,
well,
all right, man.
A lot of them are using it as a shield, right? There's like, well, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm just anti-Zionist. Oh, what are you calling for? Oh, just the death of 75% of the Jews. But no, it's the bad ones, gang. It's not the good ones. It's the bad ones. We'll let the good ones go. The ones who don't have the bad politics, right? And you're like, okay, come on. That's not an ideology. You're just calling for these things. I think that both sides play this too, to be clear, to be fair. There's a lot of people who will call everything anti-Semitism when it's not. People who are just protesting Israel, I don't think that's necessarily anti-Semitic. People who are just against the West Bank or even against the war in Gaza, I don't think that's necessarily anti-Semitic, and anyone calling that just on the basis of that is just wrong. But there are certain actions and ways you can be against that do become anti-Semitic. And I think that we are failing to see the nuance because we're all picking teams and we're all saying, well, no, I'm pro-Israel, so you're an anti-Semite. They're like, I'm pro-Palestine, so you're just a Zionist pig, right? And it just goes back and forth, and here we are.
Well, that's kind of the problem, right? Is like, take the example that was given earlier that we never got to fully explore about whether if I'm going to boycott China, am I allowed to, does that make me racist against Chinese people?
If you are holding up like if you were doing what the Steven Crowder did, right, where you're dressing up as a Chinaman and you're going around with the buck teeth and the straw hat and you're making little and you're knee-howing everyone, yeah, you're kind of you're racist against Chinese people, dude. Like, what are you doing, right?
Aren't you aligning yourself with racists even if you don't do that? Even if you're purely passively saying, I don't want to engage with China, aren't you aligning yourself with racists?
I think that you are not aligning yourself with racists in the case that you are supporting their racism. But I think that, like, it's okay.
You're supporting their actions, their outcomes. Right?
You
Yeah.
can want the same outcomes, but not like how they do it. I'll give you an example, right? I think that it was good that we freed ourselves from Britain, right, in the Revolutionary War. However, I condemn and disavow any action which harms civilians during that war, basically. Any time that the revolutionaries did horrible things to civilians during that, horrible things to the British civilians, or Americans that didn't want to break from Britain.
Tories, loyalists.
Loyalists. That was a terrible thing they did. I disavow. I do not support it. We don't have to excuse it. I think it's bad to excuse it, right? Even though I wanted the same outcome, there are lines and we don't cross them. This is why I fight with a lot of people who don't want to talk about the atrocities that happened on October 7th, right? They want to ignore it. They say, well, yeah, that was bad, but Israel's doing it worse, right? Israel's doing way worse, so we're not going to talk about this, right? I think that we have to. And I think that if you are in a protest and a lot of people around you start chanting racist slogans, you have a couple options. You can stop them, speak out against it, disavow it, right? Or you can leave. Those are your two options to remain okay, ethically and morally, in my opinion. If you just stay there and ignore it and don't say anything and just say, well, no, it's for the cause, I think you're complicit.
I think even if you leave the protest at that point and maintain your position, I think you're still complicit. I do. I think in the example that you gave me about the American Revolution, you have people attacking civilians, British loyalists, and British citizens. If you're still part of the revolution, you're still participating in that. You're still implicitly endorsing them. I think that's a choice that people have to make. Is that you?
I disagree.
You
with
are
you.
implicit.
I reject your framing. That's the word. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. No Cal Mike says, why is Wick debating Puddle of Mud right now? That's a good accusation. I'm not sure. But yeah, I reject the framing of this. I don't think you have to. I think that you can be involved in a organization. Like, I was in the military for 6 years, right? The military was rocked with scandals. They had a really big one in the basic training in the Air Force, right? Right before I got in. A lot of the platoon guys, right? I forget their names, right? Again, I'm brain farting right now.
Drill sergeants?
Is that what you're thinking? Drill sergeants. Thank you.
The hazing scandals.
Yes, the hazing scandals that happened. Are you familiar with them? But it was way worse than just hazing. There was rapes involved. It was really bad. I think that the drill sergeants and the other people around there who did not speak out against that and did not turn them in are complicit. But the ones who did, the ones who whistleblowed, the ones who did turn them in, I think their hands are clean. They saw what was happening. They took action, right? Or resigned. In either case, I think their hands are clean.
What do you think about collective responsibility in general?
I don't like it as a concept. I can imagine, though, that when it comes to real politics, there are certain instances where sanctions, for example, we know sanctions against Russia is going to hurt Russians as a whole, even though not all Russians are involved in the war apparatus. But it's a necessary thing. We just have to do it because there's no other way to get at the leaders and the organizers and the financiers that we want to. No other way to hurt them than through that. It's tricky. It's not an easy answer. It's not something I can just like willy-nilly just give you a simple formula for. But I think
you would prefer to err on the side of individual responsibility.
Yes,
it sounds like.
When we can.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's hard, man.
It is hard.
That's really hard.
It's difficult.
Because you're going to have a lot of people who are directly aligned in... I think one of the biggest tensions in American politics right now is the fact that you can, by your actions and by your preferences, directly align yourself with fringe elements of society, and your opponents can immediately attach those fringe elements to you. And I think it has only resulted in people embracing, or at the very least being less hostile to those fringe elements, because you're telling me this is this is my only friend. According to you, this is my only friend in the country.
Yeah.
Yep.
My ally. It's a problem. I agree. I don't know how to solve it. Doobie is saying in chat, Wick is using the Intifada line, which isn't even racist, to deflect from the criticism that should be levied at the synagogue for allowing a blatantly racist sale of illegal land to take place there. 1. The Intifada line is anti-Semitic. If you're chanting it out in front of a synagogue, you are being anti-Semitic. I am not deflecting from the criticism that should be levied at the synagogue. So first of all, the sale of the land was for Israel proper. There is no evidence to suggest that at that synagogue, during that activity, that they sell anything in the West Bank at all, right? I have not yet to seen that evidence. I went to the website on the flyer, right? You guys know the flyer. They've been showing as evidence that they were doing land sales in Israel. True.
I'm still waiting on Goat to send me a deal.
Say one more time. Oh yeah,
I'm still waiting on Goat to send me. But if she does, then I'll provide it to you.
Fair enough. But I went to the website. Together. I looked at the listings. I didn't see any for the West Bank at all. Not Area C, not Area B, not Area A. Right? I didn't see any listings. It was all from Israel proper. Might be I missed it. Right? Might be I missed it. That's possible. Might be they updated it. Might be they changed it just to once the scandal broke. I don't know, but I've seen no evidence of that. I know that's a claim being made. I haven't seen evidence for it. Again, I checked the website. I did my research. I went and I looked. I didn't see it. So it's this, and this is a thing. This is a trick, and this is what raises red flags with me. Is when people will excuse. Like, well, okay, so we weren't technically correct about this, but still, in principle, we're okay, right? With
but you can imagine how bad it would be if they were actually doing this, right?
No, it is bad. I think it should be protested.
Well, I mean, that line of rhetoric, you can imagine how bad it would be as a defense for getting something wrong.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of miserable. Isn't this a really good justification for not getting involved in these extra?
I don't think I think it's the easy way out not to get involved in either side. It's fence sitting. It's cowardice. Pick a side.
Is it fence sitting?
It's not. I'm being a little facetious here, right?
I got you.
But I think that I have things I am passionate about and things I believe in, and I think that my morals and my values lead me to support protests on both sides, but to be against violence and racism and anti-Semitism. The counter-protesters at this protest were racist, were violent. I condemn it wholeheartedly. There's no excuse for it. I don't care if they thought that they were doing was right. They were engaged in violence, they were engaged in racism, and they didn't need to be. And I think that was a L for them, and they should be condemned for that, and I do. What I ask from people on the other side, and I have not yet gotten, is for them to condemn the violence and the anti-Semitism on their side. But they will say, oh, no, we didn't do anything wrong. We're just small beans that shouldn't be held to any standard. And I think that is wrong.
What do you think about, this is gonna sound weird.
We gotta wrap up soon. So
yeah. So last question. Do you think that it's okay to I have to phrase this so carefully.
Go ahead.
Isn't it okay to give one side a little less responsibility? Isn't it okay to give one side a little less responsibility and say one person has to be the bigger person here?
Someone has to stop it. Honestly, look, if I was king of the world, if Wick was king of the world, I would take NATO troops and I would sit on the region. I would sit on Palestine, I would sit on Israel, and I would say, either of you do any fucking shit, we'll just take you out, right? You're not allowed. You have demonstrated that you were unable to govern yourselves. So now Emperor Wick, King of America, okay, is going to make sure that none of you little cretins do anything of your weirdo shit, okay? I can't do that. But Schwango,
so the real
for
two-state solution. Oh, sorry.
Schwango for $2 says, Wick, thanks for being Omega based. Love you, buddy. Well, I love the $2 you sent me. No, I love you too, buddy. Thank you. And I think that like there's this idea that we can't, like the oppressor-oppressed dynamics, I think is so stupid. Some ideologies, some cultures deserve to be oppressed. If you are engaged in oppression of women, oppression of gay rights, female genital mutilation, to a certain degree, I think that a better culture and a more powerful culture, one who has better morals, should come in and stop you from doing that, ideally. I think that it has to cross certain lines. It can't just be like, oh, well, there's some light misogyny going on or there's some light racism going on. It has to be extreme. But yeah, I think certain cultures deserve to be oppressed, straight up.
I think that where the American public is right now, they might have an impression of the Palestinian people as like, all right, I don't want to share a country with these people, but this shooting fish in a barrel dynamic. No, this is a completely different dynamic. Let's say that somebody is torturing one of their dogs. Your next door neighbor, your uncle, is torturing one of their dogs. It's a pit bull. It gets violent. It thrashes at the cage every time he rattles it. And one day, the pit bull gets out of the cage and goes and chases down a toddler and mauls it to death. Right, and then we have to put the pit bull down, and that sucks. And then your uncle comes up and says, "See, I told you that pit bull was always blah 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 blah." It's like, you have participated so much in creating this conflict, or at the very least not preventing it, that I can no longer see a chain of causality. In other words, I'm not exactly happy that the pit bull died, and I'm definitely not sure that you're in the right here. I don't feel good about this.
If you're making this allusion to Israel and Palestine, I am not here to say Israel is the good guys. They're not.
Yeah.
They do some shady shit. They do some shit that should probably be put up for war crimes. But
they don't let their citizens have guns.
But
as far as I'm concerned, that's like a big enough condemnation.
But if I have to choose between Israel and Hamas, I'm choosing Israel every time. It's just easy. It's just easy choice, okay? If that's my options, Israel, 100%. Every day of every minute of every hour, I am choosing Israel over Hamas. Because as bad as Israel is, Hamas is 1,000 times worse. And I think that like anyone who fails to see that dynamic at play is fundamentally misunderstanding how the region needs to be handled and what needs to be done over there. But
I don't like my uncle, but I don't want to share a cage with a pit bull. I got you.
Thank you for calling.
Always.
Talk to you later.
I'll see you later.
Any other last calls for thoughts, super chats, gift subs, any of that? And then we're gonna raid out. Who's streaming right now, by the way, gang? Who is streaming? It was a late night last night, gang. I am tired. I'd usually stream a little more, but I am beat. I'm exhausted. We had a lot going on, okay? Oh, you know what? Sad Kit Kat. You guys gonna want to go raid her? We like Julie over here. Let's say Sad Kit Kat. We'll raid her on Twitch. Who's live on YouTube? Let us look. Give me a moment. Boom. And let's see what we got over on YouTube side. Customization. Oh, I wish I made it easier to raid on YouTube. It's just it's annoying. We can go to, you know what? No one's really live that I want to raid into right now. Oh well. Okay, we'll just end it. I'll see you guys on Monday. We'll have something, I'm sure. But tune in. Have a great weekend. And I'll talk to you guys later.